Chapter 3 Morning Girl. When things around me are right, I forget to notice. I don't remember days that aren't too hot or too wet, or nights when the breeze blows hard enough to move the bugs away, but not hard enough to beat the palm trees against the trunks of the trees. When I'm eating fruit, it's just fruit, unless it's too ripe and dribbles down my chin, or so tough that my teeth get sore from biting into it. If something isn't too much or too little, I don't pay attention. When father repairs the holes in his fishnet after the evening meal, I watch without really seeing him. He's doing what he's supposed to. His eyes alert for a ripped square, his fingers finding and tying, his voice to mother, too low except for her ears. Or in midday, when it's just mother and me inside, her humming or telling me about when she was a girl my age while she pounds roots for dinner. The world fits together so tightly, the pieces like pebbles and shells sunk into the sand after the tide has gone out, but before anyone has walked on the beach and left footprints. In our house, though, my brother was the footprints. He messed up the niceness for me. Just being himself, he was too loud, making jokes when he should be serious, talking when he should listen, running when he should sit, banging two rocks together for no reason except to disturb the silence, interrupting mother or father to ask questions he already knew the answers to. Once putting a tiny green lizard on my mat as I was trying to hear the first morning sounds. It was as though Starboy didn't truly belong in our family, and when I was angry, I imagined what it would be like if he weren't around, how perfect each minute could be. I closed my eyes and I could see it. Father and mother and me, never arguing or raising our voices, and usually at that very instant, as if I had called his name, my brother would come stomping through the doorway, bringing dirt where I just swept, throwing his arms around mother when she was trying to finish a story, or wanting father to leave his work and go outside to look at some mouse hole or an oddly shaped cloud. My brother never simply put his footprints in the sand. He jumped in it, kicked it, dug holes, pried rocks loose, and threw them into the sea to see the splashes. But whenever I pointed out how he acted, and the truth is, I did it only so that he would learn to not make the same mistakes a second time, only so that he would understand how good it could be if he didn't ruin everything. I was the one who got the raised eyebrows, as if he were my fault. Yet Starboy was a trouble I was used to, an ordinary trouble that really was not so bad, not like a real trouble. I remember very well the afternoon when Mother told me her news. She and I were sitting side by side spinning strings of cotton. She was showing me how to twine the new strands together with the old, the hardest part. "I'm sure you're very lonely," she said. Mother was usually correct in what she thought about me. She understood me so well, so I considered her words before I answered. "I don't think I'm lonely." "Oh, yes," she said. "You just don't realize it because you don't know how happy you will be with a new baby sister to play with." "I don't have a baby sister," I reminded her. But at that moment, I began to wonder. I remember how many whispers mother and father and grandmother had been having lately. And then I realized that it had been a long time since mother had gone off for her days in the woman's house. "Oh, what shall we name her?" mother asked, watching my face. "She's not a real person until she has a name, not a human being, not your sister or my daughter. After she comes into the world, we have to decide right away who she is. Father and I need your help. And Starboy, too." Starboy. For a moment, I had forgotten about him and was picturing a life with just me, with just mother, father, and the new sister. "When is she coming?" I wanted to know. "Not so soon," mother smiled, "but I begin to feel her approach. She reminds me of you because she is so strong." I discovered that I liked this new sister already. Does Starboy know? I'm going to tell him tonight. I liked this new secret sister very much, and even more later on when I listened to Mother and Starboy talking in front of the house. "How do you know it's a sister?" he asked. "Why not a brother? Why not a wonderful parrot like the one those strangers brought with them from an other island last year?" "It could be a brother," Mother said, "but I don't think so. I'm certain it will not be a wonderful parrot." "And if it's another sister, I'll leave and go someplace else," Starboy warned. "I'll find a house that has no sisters at all." "Wait before you decide." Mother put her hand on Starboy's head. "Every sister is different." "Yes," I called from where I sat. "This new sister will never let you put a green lizard on her sleeping mat. This new sister will chase you to your new house and then make you stay there." Maybe we should wish for a wonderful parrot," Mother said softly, and went to tell Father. A turn of the moon later, Mother was gone when I came home. Father said she went to visit Grandmother for a while. I could tell he was worried because he held his mouth in a thin line when he thought I wasn't watching. He worked in the house all day, putting the big mats outdoors to air in the sun and retying the palm fronds on the roof so that the rain would not drip through during the next storm. If Starboy and I asked nicely, he played guessing games with us. But the one thing he wouldn't do was talk about the new sister. He said it was too soon. "Shouldn't we try to think of names?" I suggested. "That's like a riddle." "We'll know the right name when the time comes," Father said. "People choose their own name, or it chooses them. That's how it was with you, Morning Girl. How could we have known before we met you what you would be like?" "If you had known," Starboy began. "How glad we would have been," Father finished for him. "But as for you, a bat who sleeps during the day, an expert on the night," Starboy insisted. I didn't know how long Mother would be away, but the day passed slowly without her. I noticed because too much was missing. Her voice calling me to eat, her fingers working on my hair when it was tangled or stuck out from my head after sleep, the quiet, warm sound of her conversations with Father. Even Starboy watched the path for her return, though he pretended not to. But instead of Mother, it was Father who entered the house the next day, at an hour when usually he would be fishing. "Mother will come home tomorrow," he told Starboy and me. "With the new sister," I reminded him. "Have you seen her yet?" Father sat down and rested his back against the wall. He looked tired, but not sleepy. He patted the ground for Starboy and me to come near. "There isn't a new sister this time," he said. "It's a new brother," Starboy clapped his hands together. "No, not a new brother either. Not this time." Father's voice was different in a way I couldn't recognize. It wasn't angry or joking or fatherly. It was almost as though he was talking to himself and we were overhearing, as though he was leaving something out. His eyes were the color of a night sky when it's raining. I looked at Starboy and saw that he was afraid. His body was stiff, his knees against his chest, his hands balled into fists, his mouth shut, his shoulders pulled up like the wings of a bird waiting for a windstorm to end before it took off. He glanced at me, and it was so strange because I think that was the first time we actually saw each other. Of course, I knew what he looked like. Sometimes I could tell when he was behind me without turning around, but I never let myself wonder much about him. He was just, I don't know, always there, the opposite of me, and now suddenly I realized that in some ways we were the same. "Is Mother sick?" I asked Father, but I kept my eyes on Starboy, and he stared back, waiting to see what I heard. Father sat up, putting one of his strong arms around each of us and drew us close to him. "Your mother is well," he said, and I saw Starboy relax, so I did too. "But there's something." Starboy watched Father very carefully. "She is," Father sighed and squeezed my shoulder. "She is disappointed." "Because the new sister didn't come?" I whispered. Father didn't answer right away, but I knew he was also disappointed. And so I realized, was I? Worse than disappointed. I felt the way I feel when some big girl like my cousin Feet is playing too rough in the sea, kicking water at me even when I tell her to stop. That makes me want to cry. When Mother returned from Grandmother's house, she was very glad to see me. She hugged me against her for a long time, stroking my head and saying my name over and over. Finally, she stepped back, taking hold of my hands. Her face was sad, yet I didn't know what to say to her. Then I heard a noise, and behind her, in the doorway, I saw my brother. He paused as if listening for some signal, for some sign from me. "Look, Mother," I said, "Starboy's here. He's been waiting and waiting and waiting for you to come home." She turned, and Starboy ran into the house, wrapped his slim brown arms around her waist, and pressed his head to her stomach. I saw a tiny flame light in Mother's eyes, and when she knelt to touch Starboy's face and to kiss his cheeks, my brother's shoulders lost their hunch and forgot their fear. I took a breath, and the tightness left my stomach. Seeing Mother and Starboy like that was so right, so how it should be, that for a moment I didn't wish it was me in her arms. I didn't notice a thing.